Unidentified vessel. Please submit your clearance codes. I can bring you in warm. Or I can bring you in cold.
This is Justin.
The Force will be with you.
This is Josh.
This is Kyle.
This is Maggie.
And we are the Outer Rim Beacon.
What's up, everybody? Happy Friday night. You have now tuned in to the Outer Rim Beacon Friday night live stream, talking all things the Book of the Mandalorian.
Easy.
Again.
You're gonna inflame the people.
He's back. He's back again. We got a second episode, Mando-centric. But yes, the Book of Boba Fett. We are here to talk about it. My name is Justin. I'm one of your hosts on the show. Joining me tonight, as always, are my co-hosts.
This is Josh, and Justin, I don't like how you're starting this off, my friend.
Book of Mando? No?
This is Kyle, and I'm a friend of the family, just like Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm Maggie, and I'm repping my Cobb shirt from The Mandalorian.
Nice.
I thought it was Raylan Givens the whole time.
And then
Same
joining
character.
us tonight, we have a very special guest, known for his renowned Star Wars helmet collection behind him.
Clearly.
But more so, Star Wars YouTube and Twitter. We have Kyle Katarn joining us, the one and only. Everybody say hi to Kyle.
Hello there.
Hello, Kyle.
Hello there.
Kyle.
Happy to be here, guys. Thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, man. Great,
thanks for
great to
coming.
have you on. Let's we normally go down and we give like first impressions of the show. Kyle, I'm going to turn it over to you as the special guest for this evening. Give us your thoughts on this week's episode, kind of a broad overview, and then maybe just how you're digging the show to this point so far.
In the broadest of terms, I would say I really enjoyed the episode. I think my thoughts have been overall pretty positive for the majority of the show. I'm loving the cameos. Like I don't know how you could not, and I'm really, really impressed with the technology that's been on display. I was blown away in the Mandalorian season 2 when we saw the same sort of thing, but I think it's come like so far since then, and I think that was probably my biggest takeaway of the entire thing. It was technologically impressive, you know.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of use to the seat.
Look how much better he looks. It's
So
wild.
much better.
It's
a
true,
huge
actually. Yeah.
improvement.
It's impressive.
I haven't seen it side by side like that yet.
Mm-mm.
I think visually they've really mastered it, and now they just need to work on that audio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's
It was
crazy.
definitely
It's
his voice, but it was missing something. You know, as soon as I found out that it was in fact like an algorithm was audio generated, it all made sense to me. I was like, okay, that's what's missing from this. It sounds like a phone tree. Like he's about to tell me to press 1 for the pharmacy. Press.
for sure.
I remember thinking Wednesday, like, wow, he's really found Zen. He's like so emotionless and just like
Kind of
one
works
note.
for a
It
Jedi
works.
Master.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He would be the most just like serene, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if he gets into another hot action moment. If he's like, quickly, everyone, follow me to safety.
So what have you thought about the series as a whole? Like, are you more of a, what do I want to say? Like, how did you grow up with your Star Wars? Were you a book reader? Like, some of us were heavy book readers. Some of us were more into movies, shows, TVs, things like that. Some of us grew up with prequels. How did you find your Star Wars love, and what did you grow up with, and how is Book of Boba kind of impacting you?
In the local theater where I grew up, clung to their copy of Return of the Jedi, tooth and nail, and it ran for a couple extra years than the theatrical run, which allowed me at 1 year old to be able to go and see it with my dad in the theater. So that was my first Star Wars experience. I don't really remember it.
Called a core memory.
In totally, it's deep in there. But then in 1997, when the special editions came out, it was back on the big screen. I think that was my first like voluntary like push into Star Wars. And I was all about it. I loved the movies. VHSs were out at that point, so I watched it over and over again when I got home. And it wasn't long before my older cousin came over and he handed me a copy of Heir to the Empire by Timothy Zahn, and he was like, there's a whole lot more.
Well done.
Just the movies.
Because
and most of the books, you can see them on the shelf behind me now. I've got not all of them,
Quite a
but I've got
collection.
close to about 80% of the Legends
a lot.
material pre-2015 when the acquisition happened.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's a really pretentious term to use, but like, I don't know if anyone is going to be classically trained At being a Star Wars fan, I feel like I've been consuming every piece of material since about 1997 onward.
Nice.
So that's how I got to Star Wars.
Okay.
And the thing that keeps me here, I think, is just like the sheer unbridled escapism of being in this other galaxy. I'm also just like on a meta level, a huge sucker for retrofuturism and like 70s inspired sci-fi. Like I have a huge art collection of people alongside Ralph McQuarrie, like Paul Lair, Joe Connolly, all these different people. And so Star Wars just visually, aesthetically is right up my alley too. I don't know. There's just so much to love. I think of it as a gift every time we get a new series like this. I didn't ask for this.
No.
They just handed it to me. I only pay $8 a month for it,
Yeah.
Well worth it.
Yeah, for
Totally
sure. Yeah, if you're a reader at all, the Ralph McQuarrie, the 2-book artwork piece that they've got out, that book set that they've got out is wonderful to look at. It's just visually stunning. I feel like you're like I don't want to say like a researcher historian. Like you see something pop up in an episode, you turn around and you hit that bookcase and you're like, I know it's in this book. There it is, right there. I knew it, and like you're on it. So, well,
yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that. I'm pretty detail oriented, and it can kind of pull me out of it sometimes as well. Like I'll be so fixated on what model of blaster I just saw on the screen that I missed like 3 lines of dialogue thinking about it, and then I have to tune back in.
Yeah,
that can be a challenge.
Nice. Well, we are happy to have you. We're going to be talking a lot of about this episode tonight, so we're gonna dive into some big topics. Maggie, I'm gonna go to you next. What was your overall impression of this week's episode?
As a Star Wars story, I loved it. Like 10 to no complaints. As an episode of Book of Boba Fett, just with the title, I was a little bit like, it's more of like an A- for me than an A+. Really solid storytelling across the board. Still just utterly surprised by how much I actually love seeing Luke Skywalker now. Like I went and bought a Luke Skywalker Funko Pop this morning. So like Boba Fett and Pop. Luke. I know you're out of the game. I'm not.
Okay, I'm out of the pop game.
But yeah, I really enjoyed the episode. Trying to look at it more big picture, not so much just looking at it as an episode of the Book of Boba Fett. And in that terms, I will be a little bit disappointed, just because he only had like 40 seconds of screen time and he didn't talk, which admittedly is very Boba Fett of him.
That's very on brand. Yeah,
very on brand. But yeah, I loved seeing Cobb. He's fine. It's but a flesh wound. Love seeing Ahsoka. Love seeing Luke. Love seeing this little bastard. Like, so happy to pull him back out again. But yeah, yes.
Yeah.
How can you say no to this face? The king has returned. I know last week was the return of the Mandalorian, but like this is the king. This is the man who owns Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
You know what we should do is we should let our Grogus meet each other.
There you go.
Because
nice.
Mine's out of reach.
Love the Grogus.
Would that be like when the cat sees itself in the mirror and it's just like super confused?
Now, if one of these Grogus was on a leash, there'd be like a power balance, and they would fight. So I think they're both free range.
Free range.
And it's nice to hear, Maggie. It's nice to hear your take on this because I know, like in the course of this show, you were not the hugest of Boba Fett fans, like maybe prior
when you
to the
guys
show.
met me in 2019, I've become a completely different person.
Yeah, like it's completely
it's a whole other world.
Loving Boba Fett, right? I'm gonna go to Josh, and I'm gonna ask Josh this question because Josh is the guy who's loved Boba Fett. And now we're getting like part of Boba Fett cut off for like Mando season 3 teaser. Josh, what were your thoughts on this week's episode?
Well, first of all, I'm not that much of a Boba Fett hardliner that I'm not upset about any of what's on the screen whatsoever. I wish maybe a little bit they would have just called this whole thing like Star Wars Outer Rim and like not attached it to a character.
More of an umbrella
matter.
title.
Yeah. But actually, before I go into it, I have a little bit of a tribute I want to put out there.
Is this the bit you did?
If
Is
you
this
guys
like a
can just hold
Walking
on
Dead
with me.
you died this week bit? Because if that's the case, I might be.
Is this for the deputy?
real quick.
Here we go.
Every move I make, every single day, every time I pray, I'll be missing you.
No, I'm not. No,
Single tier.
You know, I was
Oh.
pretty shook. I was pretty shook by her death because I was nursing a theory that she was behind it all. I had this
Me
whole
too.
cockamamie
Yeah.
scheme cooked up.
I want to
Turns out
be
it was
behind it.
actually cool.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. What?
Yeah,
Max Rebo was not
um,
there though. He had another
Max
gig.
Rebo.
Thank God it
Okay.
was his
Not
night
in the
off.
room.
Max
Thanks,
Rebo
God.
was not there.
You
I
think
think
that
he had
was
another gig.
part of that dubstep number they were doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was somebody completely different was playing. I feel like somebody was like, "Don't come to work tomorrow," and Max
was
was like, "Stay over."
Tipped off.
And-
Max knew the inside job was coming. They were like, "We appreciate your music too much. Get out of there, bro."
The Pikes are huge Max Rebo fans, so that tracks.
Figure and
they have
Dan,
one night a
not
week
so
where they
much.
Take off and let the SoundCloud rappers come in and like do their thing.
Yeah, yeah. Josh, that was spot on. That was wonderful. I enjoyed that.
I do what I can.
Surprised you didn't throw the deputy in there at the very end though, because
Oh, the deputy that you knew was gonna die.
the cannon
moment he
fodder.
opened his
Yeah.
mouth?
Oh yes. As soon as you saw him, you knew
Love
he
it.
was toast in some way, shape, or form. He was complete and utter cannon fodder for somebody.
It was
we
a
didn't
red
know,
shirt for
but
sure.
yeah.
The red kerchief, if you will.
Yeah, for
Yes.
sure. You're right though, Josh. If it was named, Adventures Tatooine Tales or Outer Rim Adventures or something like that, it could have been a different vibe, and then you can go to a bunch of different places. But they did attach that label of the Book of Boba Fett to the show, so you're kind of expecting more Boba, and then he's talking through. I mean, you can't please Star Wars fans. He's like talking too much
not
in the
at all.
first couple episodes, and they're like, "Oh, Boba
It's
Fett talks too
disappointing
much.
that we're
Pretty
not
much
getting,
the worst.
like, maximum-
He should
maximum
never talk."
Boba action.
They could
Yeah.
have gone the route that like the comic books are doing with like the War of the Bounty Hunters, because you get a little bit of all of the bounty hunters story. Then you have Crimson Reign, which is ultimately about Kira, but the focus of most of the issues is on like the other people within her reign.
Mhm.
So like there's ways to title something without giving like the false impression that it's going to be about a specific character. Like if you read Jane Eyre and Jane Eyre never showed up, or if you read, I don't know, The Count of Monte Cristo and the Count never showed up, or Dracula and Dracula never showed up, like you'd be
I mean, it's like
pissed.
Lord of the Rings. Sauron never shows up.
Exactly.
That's what they hoped, but
Kyle is a big. I don't know if y'all know this.
Kyle number one.
Kyle number one. Old
you.
Kyle. Not
Old Kyle.
or regular Kyle.
original, can we? I mean,
Original.
old. Come on.
Original and then extra crispy.
Justin's old. That's his whole
Kyle
thing.
Classic, please.
Yeah, classic. I like
Classic
He's Kyle
Kyle.
Classic. Show the man
is-
some respect.
Classic Kyle is a huge Ahsoka fan. If you didn't know, Kyle, what was
why
your
he wore
impression of
orange
this? What's that?
That's why he wore the orange today.
I
That is why I
know.
wore orange today.
What was your impression of this week's episode?
I liked it. I liked it. I had a couple shots fired. It's
Oh.
shades, okay? Because I'm bald.
Oh,
Kyle. You better watch out, tune in.
Yeah. Now I even forgot what he said. No, I liked it. It was a good episode. There was a couple like strange things to me, like for example, like Luke is like, oh, I used to know Yoda. He was also small, and left out the part where he was like, he's the exact same species as you, and we have
Right.
no idea what it is. And he was like the most badass Jedi ever. But okay, I'm sure they got to it eventually.
Did
But
kind of breeze
Well, I mean,
over
he
it.
didn't meet
Yeah.
him at his peak, so
I mean, I think the fact that you're the same thing in two of the only three we've ever seen in the last 1,000 years is worth note.
But,
But
does he know that? Because he lived in Tatooine. He didn't.
he
see
knows
a lot of
nothing.
things.
He knows
He's-
nothing.
Well,
he's
it
He's
begs
like
the
Jon
question,
Snow.
Did
I mean,
this
it's
take
Jon
place
Snow.
immediately after season 2 of Mandalorian, or has any time at all passed? Because wouldn't this be a conversation they had pretty quickly after Grogu arrived on this planet?
You'd
Like,
think.
how are they only
You'd
now?
think.
That's day one stuff, pretty much. Yeah.
It must.
right.
It must
And-
be very soon after being on Gideon's
Maybe-
cruise.
They're still
maybe
building
Grogu-
temples and stuff.
Maybe
Mhm.
like Grogu was in like a really bad mood afterwards and like cried a lot and like didn't want to talk. So like maybe they haven't had these conversations yet. And he was finally like, sure.
That's true. Little kids
all
take
seem a
while to
little
warm up to a
one-sided.
babysitter sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when you drop your kid off at daycare or something, and you know their first couple of days they're not gonna like it. So
They don't dig the teachers. They don't
Summer
dig the other
camp, you
kids. They're
know.
like, "Where are you
Welcome
going,
home,
mom? Where are you
kids.
going, dad?" Yep, it happens. Kyle, what was your view maybe on a little bit of the
which
teachings?
Kyle?
Because
I know.
Yeah.
Am I still
I'm
talking?
gonna-
Do I get
yeah,
to answer?
classic Kyle. I'm gonna go back to
Okay,
classic
cool.
Kyle, and then I'll go to new Kyle, and then let's go back to like his teaching of Grogu like right away. we get a lot of the same stuff that he went through with Yoda. In fact, we get him hauling around
right there in the
Grogu on his
backpack.
backpack through the training and trying to teach him kind of the same lessons within the very first within the very first things that we see. Do you feel that Luke has maybe, and I'm trying to phrase this the right way, do you think he has maybe a newer concept of the Jedi and what needs to be taught, or do you think he's kind of still in that old school dogmatic view that the rest of the Jedi were in? Because, and I pose this question because the end of this episode is very much like that.
Yeah, that's what I was, and I had this exact conversation with my friend Scott, because he's like, why do you have to choose? Why can't you, like, everybody's their own thing, you can choose your own path? And I'm like, no, yes, but the Jedi do not operate in that way. They're like very rigid to a point of like it screws us in the end every single time, and we never learn the lesson ever. And he's like, oh well, maybe they'll figure it out. And I was like, historically not, but that'd be great. Maybe, I don't know. So no, I think Luke is still very much like a classic Jedi, doesn't really get the bigger picture. He loses sight of the forest because all the trees are in the way, you know what I mean? And this is going to be like very controversial, but one of the first things I thought after the little training sequence on not Dagobah, wherever they are, I was like, wow, when he was training up Rey, he was way better at this. He like definitely learned how to teach a little better than he was right here, which stands to reason. Like that's an acquired, practiced, learned skill, you know?
Yeah, go ahead, Maggie.
My controversial opinion is that I feel vindicated as a fan of Ben Solo, who was told for like 5 years there's no way that Luke could have made mistakes as a teacher. And now suddenly everybody's on Twitter like, wow, maybe Luke shouldn't be teaching kids. Maybe it's not a good idea. And I'm like, oh, it took this face to make you have sympathy and not Ben Solo and his uncle trying to kill him? Okay. All right.
Yeah. You mean the guy carrying on the legacy of the Jedi with a week and a half of training, so now he knows everything to train up the new. I mean,
everyone's
I'm not hating on him. There's not a lot of options out there.
No, I mean there isn't.
In like season 4 and plays him.
Yeah. New Kyle, what's guest Kyle? What's your interpretation of that? Kind of the same thing.
Back up. You did. That was a lot of discussion. What is the original question?
Sorry, Luke's teaching of Grogu. In obviously at this point, Luke, is in his prime, right? His heyday, right? And he's like, oh, I'm a great Jedi. I can do anything, right? His teaching of Grogu kind of goes back to that very dogmatic view that we saw. And I get where, Maggie, you're right. I think it took that issue with Ben Solo for him to realize that it was wrong, but he doesn't realize that obviously until later on.
Anakin.
But that
was actually exactly the thought that did cross my mind watching the scene where he was asking Grogu to choose. Was that he is going to cling to these dogmatic ideals because this is the way that he was raised as a Jedi, if you will, and it's not going to be until the failure with Ben Solo that he does embrace the idea that there needs to be a new kind of Jedi. Like allowing Grogu to walk both paths doesn't fit in with Luke Skywalker's worldview at this time, because none of his teachers have ever introduced that to him. Yeah. Like I would not call Luke a classically trained Jedi. I would call him like a weird homeschooled anomaly who's extremely talented.
For sure. Yeah.
He
got his GED.
He was taught in a hut, in the back of a van, and in a swamp. Those were his classroom. Like
just enough to pass the test.
Like, I don't know. I really think that he needs to have a couple sit down, like technical discussions with Ahsoka before she leaves. She's got a lot.
Ahsoka, do not walk away.
He has like the tests, and from that he can get any knowledge that he really requires. Like, and he's like the ultimate example of a self like taught learner. But I don't think that he has any sort of teaching skill whatsoever. And he acknowledges himself that if Grogu chooses this, he will be the first student that he's ever taught. So where does that imply that he would have any kind of practice at this?
He taught Leia before this, and I'm curious to know if they just like conveniently forgot that, which I'm fine with, and if they want to forget that.
Or he doesn't consider her a student for some reason.
Exactly.
Because maybe she like discontinued her training.
Yeah.
But
so he just
is this before that happens?
Failed.
Because
is
it
before or is it after?
Ben Solo's like 5 years old at this point.
Okay.
Because she had been like like 12 months after the battle.
And it's
she
9
was-
ABY. So
Yeah, and she was like pregnant during the training period. So
gotcha. Okay.
Gotcha.
So he's out there.
yeah, he is. And 6-year-old Poe Dameron's out there as well.
No. Castammer,
Go
Shower
ahead,
Bay and
Josh.
Castammer are not out there.
No.
It blows my mind though that like I and I don't take it as bad writing. I take it as like showing how flawed Luke is. But for him to be against attachment when his Jedi trials were literally like, I need to go save my dad, like, and then it's like,
little bit.
hey, every Jedi I've ever known is friends with my dad and is helping me because they care about my dad and. No, I shouldn't have attachments at all. But I wouldn't be here if it weren't for attachments. But
And also, like, the whole rule against attachments is why my dad fell to the dark side, and this whole shit show started to begin with. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
The whole law of
Exactly.
attachments
Right
so that
there.
can only be sustained if you have an entire Jedi Order to support you instead of these people that would care
yeah,
about you.
so you can be attached to them and have sneaky Padawan hookups in your dormitories. Like,
Totally.
Mhm.
No,
Yeah.
it's like you can't expect someone to be the only Jedi in the galaxy and be
One.
free of attachments. When there's 10,000 of us and we all live in a big old temple and have slumber parties, sure, we don't need to have attachments from the outside world because if I'm in trouble, I have other Jedi that can come and help
Mhm.
because we can
Yeah.
interact without free of attachment because we're like Force buddies or whatever. That's their little loophole that they have.
Force buddies.
But I just don't see it as being applicable in like a fair situation. If you're like one of only like 5 Jedi in the galaxy, you're saying that's it. There's no support network beyond that. That's not really tenable.
No.
It has to change.
And like
I
even
hold
for
to-
Luke, I mean, you have Ahsoka being like, maybe I'll come back, maybe I won't. So he really
Mhm.
has no support network except for
Ahsoka, who didn't chime in at all when attachments were brought up, having
was so
seen
confused.
firsthand,
Yeah.
first, second, and third hand what happens, like how it can go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But she
I wouldn't-
maybe she's letting Luke learn it for himself. I don't know. That also seems out of character for her. She's too
Yeah.
nurturing for that.
and she saw how attachments were really convenient and very, very helpful for Ezra. So that it
Mhm.
confuses me even more that she didn't take what she saw from the Rebels crew and utilize it with Luke. Because like we know that's
Yeah.
all already happened.
Well, and I wonder if we're ultimately going to get there. And because Ahsoka's kind of letting everybody make their own mistakes, and she said as much. She's like, "Yeah, I wasn't going to train him, but that was his decision." So, you know, when if it's Grogu's decision that she would never. When people need help, you help them, Tiernan. That's horrible.
Except for Kyle, he would say
And
the
also
same
fuck
thing.
them kids. But
Right.
but when Grogu's like, no, I want to be with my Mando buddy, then maybe Ahsoka comes around and is like, well, if that's your decision, you clearly need to be trained in the ways of the Force, and I'm also not really a legit Jedi. I just know how to do Jedi type things, and maybe there's a way for you too. Because, you know, it's really sweet, but Grogu's going to live to be the better part of 1,000 years old, and Mando's got like 75 if he makes it to old human age, but that's like a big if. So
That's
Yep.
also a point of contention.
it's loaded. Yeah.
Would Yoda even approve of Grogu receiving training at 50 years old? Wouldn't he? Made a big stink about Luke at 19, like
Mhm.
50.
Yeah. Maybe because he was like already with the temple and then like
And he was just
things
held back
outside
for
of things-
generations.
yeah,
as a young
things
man.
outside of his ability like limited his ability
He
to
took
train.
a
Things
gap of
looked-
Gap year.
30 years.
He's had
Things
over
looked
1,000
bleak
classmates.
at that point,
in his
and
career.
Yoda was like, "We need all the
Yeah.
help we can get. Let's try."
What's the rest of that story though? We see the stormtroopers. Jesus, I hate myself sometimes.
Get out of here.
In my reaction, I erroneously called out Sindralig. I don't think it was Sindralig. I just saw a top knot and a green saber and got real excited. Forgot that he dies dueling Anakin. We see it in the hologram.
But
Yep.
how does Grogu get out of there, and who's carrying him, and why does he
He's
not
seeing this
get
through fabric,
Order
yeah?
66?
Is that the sense you guys got?
What's
I
that?
know what Josh is getting ready to show.
Oh, I thought that was like a dream. Like,
Well, there was definitely like a vignette, but I
Mhm.
thought there was also like a crosshatch of fabric on not the shot of him, but the shot of what he was seeing. Oh, I
Yeah.
guess
That-
not. He's
yeah.
like he's peering out at
something.
from something.
So you see that
Almost like
logo,
he's hidden or something.
Kyle?
Here we
You see
go.
that logo that's circled?
yeah,
I know what that is. Yep.
Yep.
Jesus
Mhm.
Christ.
Hey,
Dave
hey,
Filoni.
I didn't write it. You mad at Dave?
They're in the hallway of the quarters.
Yeah, this was very interesting because Luke asks him, he
Traitor
says, do you
ass.
remember home? Do you want to go home? And then he puts his hand on his head and takes him back to this flashback.
Also, great idea. Like,
home-
Let's just
Question
casually
mark?
unpack your
Let's
trauma.
be-
real quick, kid.
It's
yeah,
just
here in
Dave
the
Filoni-
forest, like
Middle of the woods.
randomly.
It's just Dave Filoni being like, "Hey, let's show you Order 66 again."
Well, right. So that's
Every
the thing.
way
Is like, if you're
possible.
going, hey, where's your home? Right. And his memory takes him back to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. Right. Yoda and Yaddle. Hello. Is this more of a thing now? Because I mean, if that's
Brown
his
chicken,
home,
brown cow.
I'm just saying they were together there. Putting it
I
out
wanna
there.
think
Maybe
about
that's
that.
maybe that's actually why she was no longer in the Order, and Yoda was like, "Wasn't me." It
I feel like there's
wasn't
something to
me.
be said for Luke giving the choice to Grogu and potentially letting like a half force trained individual just sort of out there, letting whatever
Yeah.
happens happen. Like
Yeah.
Grogu has demonstrated considerable power. I think that's worth pointing out as well. Is that Luke might
Yeah,
not be
true.
appreciating the danger of letting someone just go out there half cocked with a force push. You know,
Murder porn.
to have
What a
their own
sicko.
destiny as a Mandalorian, which let's face it, are feisty folks.
They are.
Yeah.
Now I'm picturing Grogu being like, "No, I want to go back to Mando," and Luke's like, "Oh well, I'm not taking you. Get there yourself." Because like, how is he going to get there? He's a baby.
Kind of reminds me of like when your dog wants to go out, and as soon as you let him out, they want to come back in, and then out, and he's going to be like, "Now I want to go back to Luke. Now I
Yeah.
want to go back to
Yeah.
Jin, back to Luke."
He's going to like get half and half training for both of them.
Everyone's giving him all this attention all of a sudden. He loves it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He's like,
I
yeah,
hope he
he's
ends up
I mean,
good.
look
going
at the
back to
frogs.
Mando, and then Mando somehow reminds Luke of Tar Vizsla and how we don't have to be mutually exclusive. You can be both.
Yes.
And
Well, yeah, that's the other thing is there's quite literally precedent,
like a
which surely
line
Luke
in-
doesn't know about. Yeah.
a line in the episode previous. I was actually kind of surprised that Din didn't bring that up to Ahsoka, since that was like new information he had just learned.
he's
Like,
a dumb
hey,
dumb.
have you
Well,
ever heard
yeah.
about the fact that there's these people that were both?
Have you ever
Mhm.
heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
I'm sure neither one of them know about that either.
Mhm.
Not a story of the Mandalorian.
They know nothing.
Also, when he was talking to him about Yoda, I hope when Grogu finally talks, he'll be like, "Listen, motherfucker, I knew Yoda. I'm 50 years old. I lived in the temple. We all knew Yoda.
I'm older than you,
know your
bitch. I knew your
dad.
dad.
I
saw your dad kill a bunch of kids.
Hoisting him through the force because he couldn't
I
keep
also,
up.
I
was
also
adorable.
love the
Yeah,
the
I did
idea.
like that because
I
I
love it
first
too.
thought like, how are they gonna walk? This kid moves 1 inch a
Like-
minute. He's
It'd
He's
be really
like,
funny if
whoop,
Luke
just
was
gonna
just like walking
whoop.
like this, like a
Yeah.
jackass.
Yeah.
Facing Grogu.
I really
He's
hope
just like
that
lifting him.
I really hope that when Grogu talks, he talks very normal, and we find out that Yoda was just doing that to screw with people, because like Yaddle wasn't like that
Ketamine
as far as
confirmed.
Mhm.
yeah. Yoda just did that to screw with people. I'm convinced.
Yeah.
I was starting to think that they're like that species are like primarily telekinetic and or telepathic.
Doesn't Vander speak that same speech pattern in Knights of the Old Republic?
I think so.
Maybe.
That's a deep
Uh,
cut.
Yeah. I
He
think
was
I
the
looked.
quest giver. He had dialogue lines. I don't remember how they were phrased.
No.
Someone in the comments. So look it up. Find it out.
Yes. Figure it out.
Mhm.
Answer the question.
But just thinking like Yoda talks weird because talking came to him like secondary, and that would also explain why
I like that idea.
Grogu is 50 years old and still not speaking.
He comes from like a
Yeah.
non-verbal society because it's all up here.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that could be. Yeah, I kept hoping
Brother, you're
somebody
just
would
a
just kind of levy with Luke there that hey, only Sith deal in absolutes, man. So you're wearing all black. You're forcing him to pick one or the other, man.
Right.
You are the Sith Lord at this point. So
He's wearing all black because that's what's in with Gucci.
oh,
They wanted to put a little cherry on top of the whole lone wolf and the cub
Mhm.
scenario because it's exactly what happens there with the
Mhm.
choice. And those boots are
Yes.
Chanel, by the way.
They are Chanel.
we did get to see Luke's lightsaber though. That was kind of nice.
Yes.
His little teeny tiny lightsaber. I'm like,
Eh,
oh,
Yoda's?
like,
Yoda.
yeah, Yoda's. Sorry,
We're
sorry.
gonna see Luke's little tiny
or
Yoda.
Luke's teeny tiny lightsaber.
It's not a size, just
It was initially
Justin's a size
interpreted
queen.
as a bit of a continuity error that Luke had Yoda's saber, because in the canon Darth Vader comic, we see it getting chucked into
into
an
fire.
incinerator by Masameda. Well,
Mhm.
Matt Martin weighed in on the issue on Twitter, and he said that in fact it was a different saber.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah,
Oh.
there's
I think
there
it
you
stands
it's
to
in
go.
reason
another
that a Jedi
comic.
Master would have more than one lightsaber, maybe like
Yeah.
sitting in his quarters.
Yeah.
In
Very
another
easy
to
comic,
maybe.
we see Yoda with another lightsaber later on. So
And it's
For sure.
it's
There you go.
identical. It looks just like his saber. It was supposed to be his saber, but I think maybe that's a retcon. I don't know.
It's like when you're dad and you have a pair of shoes, tennis shoes that wear out, and you're like, "These are my shoes," and you just get the same pair again. He like just doesn't
Totally.
mess with it. I'm 900 years old. I know the lightsaber hilt that works for me. I just redo that.
You order 3 of them every time you place an order.
Yeah, they're his like white New Balances essentially.
Right. Get a little grass stains on there after a while. They start falling apart. All right, time for the
And he's got a grass cutting lightsaber too, the old one.
right.
We see Yoda pilot a couple starfighters, but I like to think that if he was in like a land speeder, it would be an enormous land speeder, and he'd go extremely slowly.
Oh, 100%. I mean,
He'd be
Mr.
in like the
Magoo's
Buick with
situation.
Saber going 5 to 10 under in every
this
zone.
is the dude that has a secret cookie recipe. I mean, the epitome of old
True.
man.
Very true. Speaking of very slow land speeders, one of them got an upgrade in this episode, which was the Jawa Sandcrawler, which had a huge hood ornament
With a
on
hood
it.
ornament? Yeah. It's nice.
They
Looks
were
good.
very proud of that crate dragon hood ornament.
I'm pretty sure
just-
that Sandcrawler belonged to the Ayatollah of rock and rolla.
Yeah, they were.
Who
Chris
thought,
Jericho.
who thought that Den was going to get the Jawas to help for a moment?
For a hot second, as he
Yeah.
flew by, I thought about it.
Yeah, because when
Yeah.
he was flying
That's
over
too
them,
much
like,
development
looking.
for him. He's allowed to keep hating them.
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't know what they would
I
have
think they got
done other than provide parts or droids at this point.
They could go
I mean-
tear apart the Pike's equipment. They're
Yeah, they
pretty-
can
Oh,
keep
that's
breaking
true.
down their tools.
Yeah.
He's full on like droid friendly now though, pulling up to
Yeah.
R2 like, "Hey buddy,
Hey,
how's it going?
hey,
Where's
friend."
your
Yeah. Hey,
where's
friend.
all the
He actually
people?"
surrendered
Yeah.
his weapons to the motherfucker from Star Tours.
So easy.
Season 1
So
Mando would
easy.
never have
Like
done that.
Yeah.
oh, hey random robot
Yeah,
on
here's the
a
dark saber.
commercial
I'll show you
airline
that.
flight. Do you
Like,
want
on
to
the
rule
bus.
Mandalore? Like
we
punch
talked
me in the
about
face
that.
one time and then it's legit. I don't
We
know. How
talked
does
about
it work?
this week from last week's episode on the podcast. We said exactly the same thing. That anxiety kicked in when you're like checking all your stuff and you're like, please don't lose my luggage at that point. Like, you got my dark saber, you got my grapple hook, you got my blasters, you got my pucks, you got everything. So
Got my unlimited whistling birds.
I like how he emptied.
Yeah,
Does he have to
did he
like?
just like pick those up individually and
Yeah,
reinsert
like-
them and take,
yeah, it's gonna be
45
annoying
minutes
to put
while
'em back
the whole
in.
Shadowpan family is like waiting behind him to use that little container.
Like, he's not so pissed about having to leave the dark saber. He's more pissed about having to put the whistling birds back in. Like, thanks guys, appreciate it.
It's like when you're at the 7-Eleven and the person in front of you buying like 250 scratch tickets and doing them on the counter. I'm like, I just need my Red Bull, man.
I'm just trying to buy a Mountain Dew and some Doritos. Get out of my
Let me just
way,
go home to my
please.
crappy apartment now.
Yeah.
Very hairy.
Yeah, they're very hairy. Furry. Yeah.
Furry.
But you guys
Is that
do the
different?
I
They're
think
like,
so.
I don't know,
Yeah.
fuzzy wuzzy.
Yeah.
Fuzzy Wuzzy.
There you
was
go.
there.
I don't know.
Well,
what,
he had
um,
no hair. That's the whole opposite.
Well,
thing.
fuzzy
I know.
wuzzy's hairy in a
That was
Schrodinger
his
kind of way,
situation.
and we don't know
Yeah.
exactly what they look like. So.
Well, speaking of large organizations on Tatooine, how are we feeling about the Pikes at this point? Because we talk about it all the time that the Pikes are not very menacing, or have
They
not
are
been
now.
to this point. They are now.
Wow.
They just leveled Garza Fwip's, what is it? The Sanctuary is what she called it, I think.
The Pikes are definitely.
It was a pretty soft target, let's be honest. But sorry,
True.
The Pikes were introduced to us as kind of like a slapstick, like not the best criminals in the world. They were like repeatedly
they were
kind of had the wool
stoners.
pulled over their eyes, and now they're kind of getting
Yeah.
this image rehabilitation as these actual
Yes.
formidable bad guys. And I think
Yeah.
we're going to find out very quickly that Cad Bane is the one that killed those Tuskens on behalf of the Pikes. Like, I think he's been working with them since a lot earlier than we first saw him.
Yeah.
I think they're cool. It took me a minute to come around to their visual design. Really used to how they looked in animation, but Solo helped with that, I think. Seeing
Yeah.
them there first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I do think they
I
look
was I was still thinking maybe there was a someone at the top of that pyramid, and Cad Bane and the Pikes are both working for them. Which I could be wrong, but I just
That was
can't.
my
I
original
still,
theory, and I had placed Garza Whip at the top of that pyramid.
I really want it to be Kira, but
Yeah,
I
we
think
want
it could be almost anybody. But because I still, and I get what you're saying, they are making the Pikes seem like a more formidable foe rather than they were back when like they had 3 Force users handcuffed and then just all got hoodwinked, and they were slapstick fools.
I actually share your hope that it's Kira. I want
would be
I would
so
love Kira,
cool.
yeah.
But I just still can't see them like masterminding this whole thing. I feel like
Crimson
there's got to
Dawn's
be a
whole
couple
MO
of
is
food chains.
infiltration into other groups. So it could very well be that the Pikes don't really have the stones to pull this off, but with enough Crimson Dawn agitators in their ranks, they're being pushed in these directions that might eventually break the back of the Pikes. And maybe that's Kira's whole play. I kind of thought that if Garza wasn't in charge, she was reporting to Kira. She was
That's what I was thinking too.
An informant type
have
situation.
This, like, I don't know, there's a hiring pattern here in Crimson Dawn. It's always the most beautiful women in the room are working for Crimson Dawn.
Yep.
And they're
Very
almost
true.
subtle about it, but after a while, you're just like, okay, so it's this one.
Every single time. What I thought was interesting with Cad Bane's whole bit to Cobb was the fact that he's like, Boba Fett is a cold-blooded killer. I'm like,
Says
and
the
you're
cold-blooded
not?
killer.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah, I know. He shoots you in the head one time, and all of a sudden, it's a whole different scenario than how
I'm like-
you do it every other week.
and then you
The guy with no
immediately
nose.
shoot Cobb, cold-blooded. Okay, sure.
Hey, he pulled.
I think he
So
pulled him
they
on
did
the
a gunslinger thing.
on the
Mhm.
shoulder.
We're not-
They had a gunslinger's understanding in that moment for sure.
Yeah.
We're not going to turn
well-
this into a who shot first.
If you pull your coat apart and stick your
Cold.
butt out like that and show everyone your gun, everyone knows
yeah.
what's up with that. And then like he waited a beat, and Cobb Vanth was like, "All right, I'll let my deputy die, I guess."
Well, and his stupid guy like was actually trying to cause trouble over there. But they did do a really good job of, for people who may not know Cad Bane, establishing that he is very legit badass gunslinger, because we see Cobb Vanth at the beginning take down like 3 Pikes before they can clear their holster.
Yep.
So he's clearly good.
He's good in
And
his
then
own
and then he got taken out pretty handily 2-on-1. So clearly Cad Bane
Bane's
is a force to be reckoned with. And oh man, seeing him in live action was just
And for those
So,
of us
so
that have
good.
followed his entire story, can we also appreciate the fact that man is 71 years old in this scene?
Yeah.
It's insane.
and
Still
still
smoking
mixing it
people.
up.
Yeah.
On
Still mixing
Wikipedia,
it
the
up.
average lifespan of a Duros is 60, so he is old beyond his years. This is a man who survives.
Well, he's got neck tubes, so that's got to add a couple years.
I wonder if he's got a couple mods in him from the parlor himself. You know,
I
Could
wouldn't
be.
be surprised.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see and hope that they have a rematch for him and Fennec.
Oh, they've got to.
definitely.
Because I remember watching the Bad Batch and being like, "Oh, he's
Mhm.
definitely showing up in the Book of Boba Fett." They're not setting all of this up
She
now.
lost him so many credits. Cad
Mhm.
Bane definitely doesn't let that sort of thing lie, although apparently he has for like 19 years, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
He's
mean,
coming to
this,
collect now.
the CGI on this, and this has been floating around on social media for the last like 2 days, with people redoing Cad Bane to make him more like what's
did
in
not
the
do it.
animated thing.
I agree.
I'm like,
That
what
was
is
not
happening?
the original intention of the guy who
Exactly.
did that video.
No,
He
no,
did
no,
it
it
for
wasn't.
fun.
It wasn't. And I'm like, you know what?
Wait,
Like,
hold on. I missed something. What
Okay.
video are we talking about?
So,
So
there-
cinematic captures did. Oh, you can explain. I don't know why.
no, you're good. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You're the guest.
A VFX artist and YouTuber called Cinematic Captures posted a video where he took the scene of Cobb Vanth and altered the color and changed some of the facial features just so that it resembled stylistically the Clone Wars Cad Bane
Yes.
a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Screen Rant took that and used a bunch of really inflammatory language, saying that a Star
Mhm.
Wars fan has fixed Cad Bane and like I don't know, just making it divisive when it didn't need
Yes.
to be.
Yeah,
which
even that
led-
I
guy,
thought he looked
even the
good.
person that made that video was like, "Wait a minute, that's
led to
not
all
what I
kinds of
was doing."
ridiculous notions, and he
Yes.
received a bunch of hate from people.
Mhm.
And his original intention was absolutely lost in the weeds, and it was
Yep.
I don't know. I placed
Yeah.
the blame for
That's
that
a shame.
debacle entirely
And-
on Screen Rant.
Yeah, and you
I-
can't sit there and go like Dave and John and everybody else didn't look at this and go, yes, this is the direction that we want to go. They
Exactly.
chose that for a reason, people.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
get over it. Like, if somebody wants to remake it and redo it, and show it as more of the anime. That's totally their prerogative. That's fine.
There's this really troubling notion in the fandom right now that paying $8 a month makes you executive producer of Book of Boba Fett, and that you're just somehow just qualified.
I blame the people who also pay money to watch HBO Max stupidity.
Well, there's but I think at the heart of it, people that grow up watching Star Wars shows like this, and then you see this, it's kind of like watching a stranger playing with your action figures on your living room floor, and you just sort of have to sit back and watch them make weird decisions, and you're like, no, but Boba doesn't shoot like that in this stuff, you know?
People play with action figures. They take them
I
out of the
always
box.
do. I mean, look at my shelves. I'm an out of the box kind of guy.
No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead. If
it's in a blister pack, I can't go. You know?
Yeah,
that's what it's all about.
Fair enough.
But I don't know. You grow up with these characters, you watch these shows, you feel a sense of ownership. You can't not feel that.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of at the heart of a lot of the problems people have with the direction of the show, is that it's not what they would have done if the action figures were in their hands. You know?
I'm begging people to learn what fan fiction is.
Well, to me, it's so easy to just like find a reason why it should be that way. You know, just because it wasn't your idea doesn't mean it was wrong. Like I texted Josh that day and I was like, hey, Cad Bane was like a lighter color blue than normally, but maybe he's old and maybe it's like all dried up and nasty on Tatooine and he's sunburned and sandburned and whatever. Like
I looked at a lot of live action Duros and I haven't seen one as blue as Clone Wars Cad Bane ever. They're all a little paler. Like look at Shriv. That's the more hyper realistic one we've had recently from Battlefront 2. He's a lot paler. The Duros from the Cantina, the original, were both.
Well, it's like you just what do old people look like? They're washed out and old and gray, and he's 70. You know?
Yeah.
See, look at Justin up there. Can we get a side by side of old Cad Bane and we'll have that next week.
And then fix him by making his mouth a little lower.
Yeah.
Right. Go ahead, Josh.
Well, it's like, okay, so you look at him. They made him. I don't have the side by side, but they elongated his nose. And they made his eyes a little bit thinner, and they made him darker.
He's old,
and I still think he looks pretty much perfect. And I want to remind people that 9 times out of 10, your animated thing, when it comes into live action, like this is one of the best animated to live action things I've ever seen. So someone already said it in the comments, but we have this.
I'm telling you, do that one in live action.
I like it.
My favorite one though, and you could pull any Batman villain from a movie. Those are a perfect example of that. But this is my favorite one.
Yes, it's terrible.
Stop complaining about Cad Bane. He looked phenomenal.
I think he looked
it was
absolutely
fantastic.
incredible.
Yes.
Just in case anyone doesn't know, the actual reason why his mouth is not that low is because there's an actual person with a mouth doing the talking, and our mouths aren't down here. So, like, if you want to know why his mouth is because we've never had the pleasure of an awesome live action Duros talking on screen before.
Yeah,
and also the Duros did not originate in the Clone Wars. Some people seem to have this notion that that's the first place we see one.
Nope.
They're in the Cantina in A New Hope. They're a live action original legacy alien species.
Yeah, and honestly, it looks better than like the Montrails that Ahsoka had, and that was. I mean, I had no issue with the Montrails because I understand that obviously translating something like that to live action and expecting somebody to fight is a lot of effort. But I felt like they put extra effort into this to prevent people from complaining like they did with Ahsoka. And they're still complaining because it's Star Wars and you just can't win.
Nope. I would say I've had more people ask me this week, who was the guy at the end of Book of Boba Fett?
Watch the cartoon.
And I'm like, you need to watch the cartoons. You need to watch Clone Wars. You need to watch this stuff because all of these characters are now being pulled into the live action and people are going, who's this guy? Like, this is a new person.
It's pretty gratifying to be like, hey, remember that conversation we had 6 years ago, bro? When I was like, hey, you really like this? Should have listened to me.
Yeah. And they're like, nah, I don't want to watch that. It's a cartoon. It's for kids.
It's for kids.
No, the storytelling is on point. The characters are cool.
Absolutely.
I'm
and in the latter seasons, they are chopping heads off and having like secret romances and whatever. It's like not strictly a children's show.
I mean, season 7, the Siege of Mandalore, some very dark themes are explored. There's
Mhm.
definitely like
Yeah.
on par with any other of the Disney Plus content.
Yeah. I was a little disappointed I didn't get Toto, but he's blown up somewhere. So
Makes you wonder if something's going to happen in the next season of Bad Batch.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, they can go a number of different directions from here.
Well, maybe Toto just wised up that Cad Bane's not nice to him for like 20, 30 years. So he just,
honestly, we'll probably see him in the next episode.
Hitched it to a new wagon.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Yeah.
I would
Can't help
absolutely lose
himself.
Seth Green, live action Toto. Oh yes.
Well, I'm wondering what
How are they
kind
going to
of,
fit him in the suit?
crazy- what kind of crazy slam dunk are they keeping waiting in the wings for the finale of the
I
show?
know.
Yeah.
You know? There's so many things that they have like teased that we
You
know
hope
are going
there's
to happen.
one.
Like Boba's going to ride a damn raincoat. It's definitely
Okay.
going to happen.
This is my nightmare.
What if just nothing happens? There's not even a fight, and they're like, "Oh, never mind. The Pikes got scared and left. See ya. Boba wins."
Character building, world building, and then done. That's
Okay,
it.
I
Nothing.
so I love Robert Rodriguez. I loved his episodes. I have nothing against his episodes, but I think that he is directing the finale.
Is he?
That's what I think. I don't know, unconfirmed.
Need to get
It's pure
Bryce.
speculation.
Mhm.
But I'm afraid that we're gonna have like a 30-minute finale because like his episodes have been the
Ugh.
shortest episodes.
Oh
of the
shit,
season,
you are right. They
which
have
is
been.
hilarious because his episode of the tragedy was a fairly decent length episode, and he took it from like 8 pages of script, which is pretty impressive in my opinion.
Mhm.
And then when given the shows in this season, it's like 20 minutes and done. And so I'm terrified
Yeah.
that we're
What
going
if,
to get a really short episode.
What if the entire thing just ends with like the camera pans out and Danny Trejo is holding a book with Boba's helmet on it, standing by a fireplace, and he's like, "And that's the way it is."
He's like in a
And
wingback
that's
chair.
the Book of Boba
That's
Fett.
the Book of Boba Fett. Hope we all learned something here today. Like,
Like, we didn't learn anything.
Oh my god. Yeah, I would love Danny Trejo in the last episode though, like him like bringing the Rancor out, like so Boba can mount, and then heading off into battle. Oh yeah.
What
here's
if
Chekhov's Rancor.
Chekhov's
Rancor.
Exactly.
what if
Chekhov's
what if we-
mythosaur. What the heck about that? She did a whole
What if we
monologue on a
get-
mythosaur.
what if we get de-aged Han Solo? Could
Oh.
you imagine him showing up just like I
Oh,
don't know
man.
why he's on Tatooine and being like Boba Fett, really? Boba Fett is a
Is that
joke."
why the set design wasn't as good for the first like 4 episodes because they had to afford Harrison
Harrison.
Ford?
They don't
Right.
even have to afford him now. Apparently, you can just take audio of him talking as
Right?
Han
Yeah.
Solo,
apparently.
put
Yeah.
it through a synthesizer, and boom, you've got lifeless Han Solo talking.
That's what I was gonna ask, just because I,
think
haven't seen.
Alden Ehrenreich would do it for like $20.
Please.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what I was
Get
gonna
him.
say.
Oh, yeah.
What if
For
they
sure.
what if they got Harrison and aged him down to look like him? And just
Yeah.
a huge waste of money.
I know.
That's what I was going to ask. I haven't seen anything. Mark Hamill's take on this, just because I haven't been on social media.
He's
like the
busy
last week.
filming. He's in Canada.
Has he
filming a
said
TV show.
anything about this? Like,
He's gonna
hey,
release
I
a
think they did a
statement from
great
Mark
job,
Hamill
or I'm
saying,
good with
I
it.
think this is the greatest thing in filmmaking history. This is definitely me. Don't research this. I think
And then it'll
Don't
it's
look
actually,
it up.
it's actually Disney put it out for him. It's an actual statement. It's
Yeah,
not
I mean,
actually
like-
him
Rail is
speaking.
now
If
my
you're
best friend.
if you're an aged actor, and let me ask this to you guys, if you're let's say hypothetically you're an aged actor, and somebody says, "Hey, we can do great things with technology now. We can
No.
make you 30 years younger, put your voice back the way it was.
Hi.
You're still going to get a fat paycheck. Are you cool with that?"
As someone who records audiobooks, this freaks me the hell out.
As somebody who was asked to do this, it terrifies me. When I was on a certain major budget film in 2018, they herded all of us into this space and told us they were going to put like dots on our face and put us through this camera thing. And I was like, no, because I knew exactly what it was. They were going to use us to replicate us. And there's lots of proof of television shows and movies using the footage that they have collected from previous movies and replicating people into other movies that they are not getting paid for. It is a huge issue.
Okay.
Yep.
Never
that's what I was gonna say.
Outsourcing your own
Super-
extra work for free.
Well, and then let's not even go outside of the movie industry, but just being able to replicate a person's face and voice in
Terrifying.
general is not.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
awesome.
ramifications are somewhat upsetting, like right off the bat.
Super
And I
cool
mean,
new
I've-
technology,
mistakes on that
super
first-
scary at the same time.
I'm genuinely surprised we haven't had like a superhero movie with like a supervillain that like takes like the president and like makes a deep fake of the president to like send out mass stuff. Like the technology is there and would be terrifyingly accurate.
That just happens already, though.
I know.
I mean,
It's also gonna make it somewhat
you don't have to make a movie.
Every time you see
It's on
like,
Twitter.
Like, I don't know, when Joe Biden was on Parks and Rec, that was such a holy shit moment. And if that moment happened in this day and age, you'd be like, oh, is that really him or is that CG? There's no way to know. Like, it kind of tempers that excitement when you see a famous cameo now. Is like, I don't know if that's really the person. It sounds and looks like them, but it could be someone else.
I actually was at Target this morning and I was checking out with my Luke Funko Pop, and the cashier had like a Captain America pen on, very much like a fan, was like, did you hear that they had Mark Hamill like de-aged or something? I was like, yeah. And he was like, I don't believe it was really him though. And I'm like, well, it wasn't. And he was like, they did that creepy thing with like the dead guy in Rogue One too. And I like didn't want to watch it because I thought it was like creepy that they're bringing people back from the dead. And I was like,
I would personally just rather them recast it and try to get somebody that looks similar and can pull off the vibe and just roll with it. I thought it worked fine in Solo.
Didn't work that great in Revenge of the Sith with Wayne Pygram.
No, just go to
kind of a horror show
telenovela.
if you got too close.
Yeah, just go the telenovela route. Just be like, absolutely no explanation for this recast.
Yeah. And I think, don't get me wrong, I think Max Jones?
Max Lloyd Jones.
Max Lloyd Jones has done a great job with it, and he does look very similar to him. Like, he's got a lot of the like high point features in your face that I think that mirror that. So I'm not gonna poo-poo on what he's been doing. He's been doing really good stuff.
Max Lloyd Jones was the stand-in in Mandalorian season 2, right?
Yes.
Because I know they picked a different person for Book of Boba Fett episode.
And there was a lot of criticism then at the end of season 2 of Mando of, well, that doesn't look like Luke, blah, blah, blah. But the technology has clearly come a long way from that time to what we're dealing with in this episode. It looks very different.
Learn by doing. But it's a shame for those actors too, because they're only getting partial credit. And it's not really their face, even though they're doing the work. Which, I mean, you can say that for the body doubles and the suits too. Yeah.
There's some other actors in the Book of Boba Fett that are not present. Just saying.
I mean, they even credited Mark like in the credits.
Well, I mean, the same thing happened last week with the Paz Vizsla. Like, they didn't even credit anybody for that role. Like, Emily Swallow was there and then just went on to the next actors that weren't in that scene. Didn't credit that it's Jon Favreau, I guess, doing the voice of the character, and like the two people, the stunt double and the body double, got like the after everybody else in the credits credit because they're considered crew, and it's like they're actually acting. Like all of that is Brendan and Lateef and Tig.
They consider the costume the character.
Yeah,
it doesn't really matter to them who's in it.
But I'm like, they're the one actually doing
for the people that actually put that work in,
And it's so frustrating for me because like I go onto Twitter and I see people being like, "Oh my God, Pedro Pascal deserves an Emmy for this performance." And I'm like, that's not him in the costume.
It's not him in the suit.
He is in Canada filming a TV show.
Pedro Pascal's mannerisms, Pedro Pascal's body language,
and I'm like, it's Brendan
his fighting
Wayne.
skills. I'm like, come on,
that's Brendan Wayne.
He
drives me crazy.
Not him.
That's crazy. But you're right. You're right. I think as long as you're getting the credit for it and you're getting paid for it and you're doing the things, it's totally up to that individual actor to say, yeah, I'm cool with it or not cool with it.
Free market, but
it's a free market. But Sean, you're exactly right. If they say, should we do this? And then go ahead and do it anyway without permission, the answer should be no.
Yes, Sean is a fellow actor.
Which is why I was curious. I haven't seen anything from Mark saying, I was cool with this, that I knew ahead of time, like it was totally fine. Because he knew about the season 2 stuff, the season 2 Mando stuff. So
I'd be shocked if he didn't know. I mean, they put his name on it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, the actors, even somebody like Mark Hamill, doesn't really have a lot of place to make demands because they've signed things previously where your likeness and voice can be used. And like all they have to do is cut you a check, which I'm confident might be what happened here. Probably at least informed him that it was happening. And he probably was like, yep, I want to keep my health insurance, keep paying me. But like it's an issue within the acting community that there's very little rights that we have even as a union, that you just have to be like, okay, the studio has control. I mean, as long as like the president of SAG is in the pockets of the studios.
the presence of this digital amalgamation, like this replication of people, just makes actors that much more replaceable when you try to stand for some rights, gain any kind of
Exactly.
ground. They're like, oh, easily. No, now you're just digital Maggie for the rest of the movie. Problem solved.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's scary.
No,
And for
I hear you.
subsequent movies, probably, and then we'll eventually we'll never hire anybody, and it'll all just be in a computer.
Yeah, the movie will be fully cast by people that all of them died 40 years ago.
Well, and then you have that really creepy thing on Twitter where that bot keeps making fake people that look like real people. So
Yeah.
like there's
What now?
so there's a bot that somebody has programmed. There's a couple different versions of it that take pictures from like all over on the internet, and it merges everybody's face together to create somebody that does not exist, but they look like they could exist, and they can replicate their face, their body, and make them look like real people in different photos. And they're all computer generated. It's terrifying. And then think if you take that and then you replicate that into a physical being on screen.
Wow.
It's like the fake person they have doing like music videos. I can't remember what her name is. Like started on TikTok. It's some music studio. Super terrifying.
Crazy. That's crazy.
They have like fake boyfriends and everything. It's terrifying.
Nice. That's
No,
crazy.
not nice.
No, I mean not nice, but I mean it's crazy that we have the technology to be able to do this now, but not in a good way at all. Like that's
My mind immediately goes to Ana de Armas as a character in Blade Runner. Like that's the
Yeah.
kind of level of like social interaction people are going to have, like full relationships with people that don't exist.
Holy
Completely
crap.
like CGI generated. Like this was never a person.
Big old catfish,
With
much like
Fake
the
movie
pikes.
stars that like are in multiple movies, but they're not
Yes.
actually people. Weird.
Big old catfish, much like the pikes. But
There's
they
not,
were
with a catfish. There's some hairy dude at the end. With this, there's just like nothing.
Nothing. Ones and zeros.
There's
There's
nothing.
the
Yeah.
existential void is what's waiting for you
Yeah.
at the end.
Yeah. The nothing. Yeah.
Have you guys
which-
seen the movie Her? With
Yes.
Joaquin, or yeah,
Mhm.
so good.
We're getting
This
there.
is the least silly episode of this show we've ever
Got
had.
really
Yeah, now
serious.
we're
I'm
spiraling
know,
into
like,
this
we-
dystopian
yeah.
futures.
I have an interesting question though for you guys. Just because it's been pretty interesting this series, this Book of Boba Fett series, because we took a character that we thought was maybe a bad guy in Empire and in Return of the Jedi, and we've kind of turned him into not that person.
The
We've
weasel hooker.
turned him into a
She was
good
in
guy
the bar.
essentially, or trying to do the right thing. My question for you guys, I don't care who goes first.
Altruistic crime boss, anyway.
Yeah. Is there a character in Star Wars that is, let's say, an altruistic good right now that a show or movie about something like a character pulls them in and makes them change your opinion of them to make them bad?
Is there one that currently exists, or would you like to see one? Is your question?
Either or.
Yeah, I got lost
Is
too.
there, either or. Is there
I
one
don't
that
want that
currently
exact
exists that
scenario
was a good character that they made bad for you, or is there a character that you love that you're like, oh, this person is so good, they do the right thing, they're awesome. Oh crap, they just made me not like them. Go
Not
ahead, Maggie.
on screen, but Avar Chris and the High Republic, like the
Mm.
character started off really cool, but like she's spiraling out of control, and you're watching
Yeah, she
her become a bad person, and like
Especially in the High Republic comics right now.
yeah,
I gotta
High
catch up
Republic
on. I gotta catch up on those. I'm not
and
there
then
yet.
like there not to like talk big the Fallen Star spoilers, but like there's a character who does something really really bad, and it was a character that I really liked who's a good guy, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going back to just liking bad guys.
Okay, all right.
I
Have
think
you finished it yet, Justin?
Yeah, I finished it.
Okay, you know who I'm talking about.
Yes.
It's a Jedi.
Yeah, it's a Jedi. I know.
Okay.
I know. Yep.
I think the scenario you're describing is literally going to happen with the Andor show, and we're going to learn
That's-
about the dark
I'm
things
so
that Cassian
scared.
Andor is going to do
I'm so
to
scared.
serve the Republic. And I think
I'm
that's
so scared.
literally the situation that's going to happen.
I
Okay.
cannot have people disliking my baby boy.
So
Oh, I don't
okay.
know- I
So
don't
wait,
know
hold
if
on.
anyone how can you dislike Diego Luna?
I know.
Well, okay.
But
So this is
Cassian's gonna do
great,
something
right?
that's gonna shock people.
So that's a good topic of conversation, right? Andor, right?
I mean, he
Cassian
shoots
Andor,
somebody right off the bat when you meet him, and
right?
Rogue One, so-
Basically, was a bad dude when you met him.
Right.
By the end of the movie, they made him a good guy. So if you look at a show basically about his life, are you going to go, well, this dude, he's going to start as a good guy in that show, or is he going to start as a bad guy for you in
He
that
was
show?
never
I feel like
bad
you've
guy.
oversimplified it a
That's
little
really
bit.
Yeah,
like,
let me-
he wasn't
all right,
a
so he
bad
was
guy. He
doing-
was doing the Republic, the
Yes.
good guys' duty,
Yes.
and he's
The
showing
dirty work.
the point that even the good guys roll in the
Mhm.
mud, basically.
I
Good
mean,
point. Yes.
Well, good is relative when we're all murdering each other,
I
right?
think he maintained a pretty consistent level of moral ambiguity throughout the movie. We
Yes.
just like him more because he started shooting the people we wanted him to shoot.
And he's Diego Luna.
But I don't think he had any qualms about shooting any of them, more
No,
so
I
than he
mean-
did in the beginning.
True.
Like,
He would have taken out most of them if he had to have
Yeah.
had to do it. Yeah.
Well, that was the thing. He shot someone who was his friend, informant,
Well,
at least
he was-
a co-worker,
Look,
because he had a
he's
bum
gonna die.
wing.
I'll pose this question to you: if he had come up there and Krennic had Jin with the gun to her head, do you think he would have like just risked it and taken a shot? Because I absolutely think he wouldn't have
Oh,
hesitated.
I think he would have
would've
killed
let
them
her
both
go
and plugged the thing in.
He would have killed Jin if he had
boom.
been right in that moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Well, I mean, not that would have really
So
would have
much.
only cost her about 15 minutes, but
Well, and, you know, I've seen a lot of really good like analysis because like Cassian's one of my favorite characters about like he basically did that guy a solid because if he left him behind, he was going to die an even worse death and probably give up information about the
Probably would have
Republic.
been
So,
tortured first. Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so ultimately he spared him in a twisted way, but that I mean just goes to show you what happens in war.
The dude had
Well, and
one
that was
arm.
also-
There was no way he was getting out of there.
yeah, he couldn't climb up. When that was that
he
that was
could run.
Cassian's whole thing too. Is like he was carrying this burden of things he had to do, and
Here
Chirrut
you
could
go.
see it.
What
He
if we
carries
find
his
out
cell with
Max
him.
Rebo was actually evil?
That's a perfect example of a character we think is
That would
good
be a
that
fall
they
from
make into a
grace right
bad
there.
guy.
Yeah.
He's feeding intel to the Pikes like Garandin in A New Hope. Here, he's just
Yes.
like
Garandan
the
is
Empire.
extremely well endowed for a guy trying to blend into a crowd. I have to say.
Truly.
Well
Yeah.
endowed, huh?
Kyle, Josh. What about you guys?
The armorer.
Okay.
Oh, that's true.
We thought the
Yeah.
armorer was sweet, and then we found out that she's a cult leader who doesn't really care about Mando.
I mean, I think that she's probably Rook Cast from Clone Wars.
I love that
Okay.
theory.
Toss
Got the
around
little-
that
got the
idea.
little spikes on the helmet. It's a dead giveaway. Only Maul's supporters ever did that.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Very true. Yeah. Kyle, what about you?
I think the armor is a really good example because when they first popped up, we'll say all of those covert Mandos, we were like, oh, these guys, they just kind of doubled down on their stuff because they're scattered and they're so few now. And turns out like, oh, they're just like essentially Mandalorian religious zealots. So that was interesting, if not like, oh, shucks, that was a shame. I wanted her to just be awesome. But
Does
Yeah.
Han Solo count over the course of A New Hope? Because he's
Where-
very like disaffected and like apathetic towards all of the problems of the galaxy until pretty much midway through the third act when he chooses to return and help during the trench run. But like he's obviously charismatic and we're supposed to like him. But if you
He's
think
too
about it just on a
charming.
moral scale, is he like does he have that dynamic change in the character, or would you say he's just solidly good in A New Hope?
No, it's definitely I think it's there, but we as an audience we don't see it. But I think the problem is that the character is just too charming and, like you said, charismatic for us to be like, oh, this guy sucks. Like,
Right.
But no, there's definitely like we meet him and I'm all about me. I don't care about what you got going on. Pay
He's
me.
a regular Toro
and-
Calican.
Yeah.
oh, whoa. But I think it comes off as like a bachelor who finds the right lady, though, not like a bad
Sure.
guy gone good. Because he's just like he's a
never
scoundrel.
nefarious.
He's not evil. He's just a scoundrel.
Right. He's not like I
He's
love
just
Maggie's
scruffy.
example of Avar being the altruistic good that you see that starts to do the bad things that take them down that path. And now you're like, I don't like that character as much. Like they weren't what I thought they were. Or they've changed the character from the altruistic good. But we've seen in Star Wars multiple, and I don't get me wrong, I love Cad Bane. He's a bad dude. But watching this show when he popped up at the end, I'm like, oh my God, I love Cad Bane even more.
I love him.
Like
Yep.
he's just
He's
so
so bad.
cool.
He's pretty much
He
bad
is
to the bone,
so
though.
cool.
I think
He's
the
a
teeth are my
bad
favorite
dude.
part of his live action.
Mm.
Like just his mouth in general.
They're so creepy.
Oh my
Great.
God. He just the lines, the way
I want
he
to see some
delivers
hand-to-hand
them.
work from this
Yeah.
71-year-old Duros.
Oh my God.
I want to
Corey
see him and
Burton,
Fennec
no.
really like get into it.
Corey Burton, the voice of Cad Bane, just phenomenal.
So good.
Do we think
Oh.
they're gonna use his little like ankle booster things
Oh,
to
I hope
fly
so.
around in
Oh.
live action? That would be so cool.
I mean,
Oh
yeah,
my
because
God.
Corey Burton is all we need for the voice. They could put anyone in that
Yes.
suit. So
Yeah. I mean,
Back
I
in
doubt
the
he
lower-
walked all the way to Mos Pelgo.
Just through the
Freetown.
open desert. Yeah.
Yeah. Which
Freetown.
shout out to Chuck Wendig, another
Right.
person who
Mhm.
does not get the credit that he deserves
Mhm.
for creating stuff that we really love.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This was a stellar episode. And the hard part for me is this is the one that Tem was teasing. He's like, "Oh, if you think this series is great, wait till you see episode 6." And we're like, "Wait, what's going to happen in episode 6?" And then we got all this craziness. And now I'm like, "Well, wait, you only teased episode 6. What happens in episode 7 that you didn't mention?" I have no idea.
He thought it was lame.
I
He doesn't
think-
even like it. He doesn't like the season finale.
I
That's the
mean,
thing.
He's like,
we
it's
got
10
Cad
minutes.
Bane.
I'm a little concerned if he's like, "Oh, episode 6 is bananas. Episode 7, it's okay."
We got 4 character returns and a character debut. I mean, the next episode could be stellar and still not have as much in it that this one did.
Right.
It's gonna have
True.
a bunch of people coming together. I not too many new introductions. You wouldn't think they got to
Even though
converge
all
these
the same
plot
people are
lines.
in the next episode, it won't have the same emotional impact because we've seen them now. You know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm expecting like Avengers team up. All the Jedi show up to
squad.
help them take on the Pyakes. Grogu with the little lightsaber. It's all gonna happen.
I think we're gonna pair off into little combat pods. We're gonna have Fennec Shand fighting fighting Cad Bane, and then we're gonna have like Black Chrysanthemum fighting maybe Bosk to play up that
Oh,
whole
yeah.
trend.
Oh, that would be very sick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And that leaves someone open for either Boba and Din to team up and fight against, or 2 more opponents, one for each of them respectively. But who those people are going to be, like, I don't know. But I really feel like instead of like a huge like Civil War airport fight kind of thing where it's a large melee, I think we're going to pair these people off.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna have
It's more
Cobb
interesting to
Vanth,
watch.
and then we're gonna have Cobb Vanth and the Resistant show up because he's gonna rally the Freetown people after that encounter with Cad
Mhm.
Bane.
Well, there is a
guarantee we're
whole
gonna see
army of
Cobb Vanth
pikes to
looking
deal
really
with.
Sexy in a sling with his arm in a little sling, doing that whole number,
Yeah.
working
Well,
it.
he did say he needs him to lead people. He didn't say he needs him to fight. He needs him to lead people, which was the people
Exactly.
of
That was his
Freetown.
shooting arm, I believe.
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe he's
Cad knew what he
ambidextrous.
was doing.
We
Cad
don't
knew
know.
what he was doing with that shot.
I
He
think
took
one of
him
the
out.
one or both of the Gamorreans are going to die, and it's going to break my heart.
I
Oh,
know.
Oh, that's
I love
sad.
those dudes.
Classic
They're
chubby
great.
Gamorreans.
Yeah.
I'm already sad because I don't know what happened to Garza Fwip.
Well,
I am hoping she's not
she
dead.
was between
Whip.
that bomb and the door. I think we
I
all
know.
what happened to Garza
I
Fwip.
know.
She's pink
I really
mist.
liked
Yeah.
Garza.
And next week's episode, I'll be talking about fridging.
Right.
Stay for my lecture.
Yeah. I'm and the little R droid, the R unit droid that was the drummer, he's gone. Figuring Dan was in there at the time. He's probably gone. That's sad.
Well,
Art,
we were
Rex is gone. The droid Rex, he's gone.
we were talking about this ultimate confrontation, and we're assuming there is beef between Cad Bane and Boba Fett too, vis-a-vis the dent
Mhm.
and the metal implant on his head. So potentially those guys want to take another shot at each other, or I would love it if they even just some kind of comment about it, so we
The
can
show does not shy away
fully
from flashbacks.
canonize
You
it.
could full on show
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That would be very, very sick.
Oh, that would be really cool.
Boba, you know.
Yeah.
That would be
I
very,
mean, and
very sick.
that's what I think we've talked about it a little bit before on the podcast, where even if it was a nod to, hey, that's how you got the dent in your helmet last time we faced each other. Do you want another one? Or next time, or this time, I'm not going to hit you in the head.
And we know that it played out that way, even though it didn't air in the arc, because he had the metal plate on his head in the Bad Batch. So we
Mhm.
know that it did, in fact, occur.
Yep. Yeah.
Although I'm
Right.
not gonna lie, if they show it and they like they show the flashback and you get a younger Boba, and for some reason maybe he takes his helmet off after he gets hit, and it's not Daniel Logan. Like, hire Daniel Logan loves being Boba Fett. Hire him back
seriously.
for the flashback. You don't need a DH Tim.
No.
I
They could
said this on
even
a
have Daniel Logan show up and then just like put like 10% of Tim into his face digitally and like put the two people together or something
Yeah.
to make it like he's turning into Tim Ware Morrison.
Mhm.
I said this on a previous episode. They could easily, I mean, they're making a million Star Wars shows. They could easily make a show around him as a younger Boba Fett bounty hunting, like in his quote prime that a lot of fanboys want to see.
Yeah. I mean,
It would be
we don't know-
entertaining out
we
there
assume
hunting
that
bounties.
every time actors that are billed for a specific show go to the studio, they're only working on that specific show, but they could easily be filming footage to be used at a later date in other shows. Like that happens
100%.
all the time.
Very sneaky,
Yeah.
sneaky.
I know just watching some of Daniel's stuff, he didn't get to really appear in the actual Boba Fett armor. So I think for him, it would mean a ton for him to like be in an episode where he's like in a flashback as a younger Boba with that.
Can you
armor
imagine
on. Oh my God.
how that
That
would
would be
feel?
like,
If you played Boba Fett, but you only ever got to play him in like
Yep.
the
kid
blue
form.
poncho with the belt.
Yep.
I mean, come on, you get to put the
I wanna
armor on.
see-
That'd
Yep.
be so sick.
Yep.
I don't know. I feel so spoiled wanting more from like
know.
the fact that
Right.
a show about Boba Fett gave us flashbacks to Order 66 and the Siege of like the Scourging of Mandalore, the Night of
Yep.
a Thousand
Night of a
Tears.
Thousand Tears. Yeah.
I
Mhm.
did not expect either of those things.
No.
The Cad Bane Boba duel actually would make sense given what show we're watching. Of all
Yeah.
the flashbacks, that's one that I would actually expect to see, which is
Tales
why
from
we're
the Outer
probably not
Rim?
going to get that one.
Yeah, spot on. We have talked immensely about this episode. There was so much good stuff in this episode. I can't.
Justin's
it-
spot from there a couple times.
Yeah, I have. It blows my mind that there are people out there that still, and this is Star Wars fandom, that still complain about this kind of stuff. And I'm like,
The
dude,
hater's
man,
job is to
you
hate,
had
Justin.
live action Cad Bane, and it was
Seriously.
freaking
Ugh.
awesome.
He was so good too.
Yeah, his hat wasn't big enough. The brim wasn't wide enough for Cad. Shut up. Just shut
I
up.
was like, I
people.
would love
Yeah.
to see
Stop.
It
like
was so good.
I would love to see all of
Just
these people work
stop.
a single day as a costumer on a set.
I thought he looked awesome, and I'm
I-
like a Cad
Yes.
Bane person. I really like
I
him, and I
loved it.
thought he
I
looked
loved it.
sick. And I
He
was
looked
judgy about the
scary.
way Ahsoka looked, even, but I thought Cad Bane looked very good.
Josh, pull up that picture of Cad Bane again. He looked legitimate scary in this. I thought more so than what he looked like in
His
Clone
teeth
Wars.
were terrifying.
Yes, like that face, the eye, like the age in the eyes, the red, I thought it worked perfect. He looks menacing. The line delivery with the teeth was spot on.
I love the this new just tradition of Star Wars bringing together a body actor and a voice actor to work in tandem to do a
Yeah.
performance. The way we had Ray Park and Sam Witwer as in
Look at
Solo
that.
as Maul, famously
Yeah.
James Earl Jones and David Prowse.
Yep.
And I don't know who was. I guess I didn't see him in the credits. Who the body actor was who played Cad Bane in this episode?
I don't
Kind of
know.
what Maggie was talking about. I don't know if he was credited appropriately or not.
I don't know. I haven't seen it
Troy
yet.
Burton was definitely in there though.
I'm sure it will pop up at some point who the body actor was, but I mean, if it's Corey Burton playing himself, that would be
I don't
freaking
think it
sweet
was.
too.
'Cause
But
I saw somebody mentioning that he just voiced him.
Yeah,
One
he
of the
did
voice
voice.
actors.
Yeah.
Whoever he was in there, he did an absolutely wizard job. He looked
Mhm.
so good.
Wizard.
Yes, spot on.
We're
I
having
know-
a full-on hat debate in the chat now.
Oh no, what's wrong with what?
The new Malibu Stacy just came out, and we got to talk about the hat.
Yeah,
He did have multiple hats in the Clone Wars.
He did. Yep. He did
True.
change
He
his
got
hat.
locked- he got locked up.
Over a hat.
This is a man that appreciates a nice hat. Like
I bet you he has at least 3 haberdasheries on his speed dial.
At
Yeah.
least.
I need a new hat.
They-
Like,
We need a
very
hat
much
over
like
here.
well, Justin, I know you haven't watched the show, but it was very justified. The whole thing, the whole gunslinger shootout,
I'll get there.
Timothy
I'm getting
Oliphant
there,
in
Kyle.
general, the hats. There's a whole hat storyline in Justified too. It's a
Last
whole-
time Cad Bane showed up, we had an
Mhm.
excellent Western showdown duel against Hunter
Yeah.
and the Bad Batch, and I love that this is just the trend now. If Cad Bane
It's just
shows
his
up,
thing.
we're about to get someone
Yeah.
doing a standoff.
Which is always awesome. Have you ever seen one that was like, oh, what a lame showdown with 6 shooters? No, it's always sick.
Always
awesome. Yeah. And I just love the fact that there are Star Wars fans out there that love the original trilogy, love the prequels, maybe love the sequel trilogies, that are like, who is this dude? Because I have not watched Clone Wars. I love that fact that this character has like made them go, wait a minute, I'm missing something here. I need to go back and watch this stuff. So
it's like how many hundreds of doors just got opened for people.
Yes, exactly.
Seeing that silhouette walk through the desert. It's like, yes, more people coming to the party. I've been here for years, but I'm happy to see everyone else here. You know?
Yes, preach. Spot on, Kyle.
It's too dry on Tatooine to be chewing on a dry toothpick. That's fine.
Yet he wears all black leather.
Chewing gum.
Yeah.
If ever I was going to advocate for a poncho, this would be it.
Yeah.
Something billowy. Yeah.
Something light, something beige, you know?
Well, we've had a blast, absolute blast, talking Star Wars with you, Kyle, tonight. This has been a trip because we actually didn't get into a lot of not classic Kyle, guest Kyle, or new Kyle. We have not like dove into nearly as much pop culture stuff or like the random tangents that we get into, but the time flew by. For me, like honestly, I know. This has been amazing.
I had a really good time. Thank you so much for having me on the show, you guys. This has been
where can people find you? Where can they follow you? Is there anything that you want to put out there and promote while we got you on?
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kyle Katarn, and I'm the host of a YouTube channel. Everything is under my name. So Kyle Katarn for YouTube, Kyle Katarn on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, and I do reactions and reviews to all kinds of Star Wars content. I host Comics with Katarn every Wednesday on Twitch, where I do dramatic reads, if you will, sight reading of comics that come out. It's usually a lot of fun, and I make some character choices that I have to commit to for like 7 monologues. I really wish I turned the page before I gave him a weird alien. Nice. It's good times. I also review and critique Star Wars fan films. I've done over 150 Star Wars fan films at this point. Trying to just provide signal boosts to a lot of creators out there that are like working tirelessly to create these awesome expressions of their love of the fandom. And I salute it, and I want to be a part of it in some way. And so I try to, connect people and put them in touch with like some awesome fan creations out there. Because if all you're watching is Disney Plus, you're actually missing out on quite a lot of the Star Wars fan experience.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
There's some really, really, really well done fan films out there.
Absolutely.
They have awards literally for the fan films out there.
Which are and several of these people have gone on to have careers at Lucasfilm too. Like it happens. So
find your niche and get your foot in the door, and then you
can find me anywhere on pretty much any social media platform. Just type in Kyle Katarn, and my big old beard will pop up pretty much like right away.
Please tell me though, you at least have one video on your helmet collection in the back there. And if not, please do one, because I would love to see it
with individual videos giving breakdowns of each helmet. I do. I have a series of collection videos on Patreon as well. Patreon.com/Kyle Katarn channel. But publicly, I just have reviews for each of the helmets as they arrive and go on the shelf. But there's quite a few of those in the playlist. So
nice. Go follow him. Go look him up. He's everywhere, just like Maggie of the Town, all over the social medias, everywhere. We've had a blast talking this episode with you guys tonight. Hopefully you had a good time. I'm Justin for Josh, Kyle, Maggie, and new Kyle. As always, may the Force be with you.
Always.
For light life.
Like a bantha.
Unidentified vessel. Please submit your clearance codes.
I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
This is Justin.